We do. I will
All right,
go
let me know
live.
when we're ready.
When you're ready.
All right, thank you, Ben. Good evening, everyone. At this time, I'd like to call to order the North Canton Committee of the Whole meeting, March 15th, 2021. The time is 7 p.m. Ben, would you please call the roll?
Member Warren.
Here.
Member Foltz.
Here.
Member Fonte.
Here.
Member Soretta.
Here.
Member Stroya.
Here.
Member Peters.
Here.
And Member Revolt.
Here.
7 present.
All right, thank you, Ben. All right, first up, Finance and Property. Chairwoman Warren, the floor is yours.
Okay, so if you remember, it's been almost a year where we took out some notes or some bonds to buy the many different properties that we were buying. So those are coming due in May. And although we have something that we are working on, it won't be finalized at that point. So we need to renew these notes. And it's a little over $4 million for all the properties. And once we have those monies, hopefully in place, we'll be able to repay this. You don't have to wait another year for that. But the great news is it's a really, really low rate, almost under 1%. And so we're in a really good position. And we also have, Gina is going to introduce them, but Gina can talk a little bit more about this. And then we have someone from Baird that can also talk about what we need to do to move this forward. So Gina, thank you.
Yes, actually, I'm just going to defer to Mike Burns from Baird.
Okay.
And he can walk through the process. I know we did this a year ago, right about at this time, and we're going to go through the same process, but the market looks a little bit different. So I'll have Mark explain that.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Burns. I'm with Baird, and I've been fortunate enough to work with the city now for a number of years on a number of financings, going back to a bond issue about 4 or 5 years ago. Kept in touch with the city over the years, and fortunate enough, I've been able to maintain a relationship and continue to work with you guys in the future. Gina said exactly right. It's strange times right now, and it's there's a lot of stuff going on with the pandemic and everything going on in the world today. The one positive thing is interest rates are very, very low, as Gina alluded to. And I'll just share. I'm not sure if I can share it or not. Let me see.
Yes, give me 1 moment.
I'll just share an interest rate graph with you, kind of show you what we're looking at.
Okay, you should be able to share now.
Thank you. If you can see this interest rate graph, this is just a nice little indicator of where interest rates have been for the past year, going back to January 2019. I apologize, I'm not sure if you guys can see this well or not. Hopefully you can. But overall, you can see going back to January 2019, interest rates were up around 2 to 2.75 for a 5, 10, 15, and 20-year term. And these are the index that tax-exempt bonds are sold off of. Over time, the interest rates have decreased all the way up to March 9th of 2020. And I'm sure everyone knows what happened that day. That's why we're having a Zoom meeting instead of an in-person meeting today. That's when they shut down Ohio and shut down really here in the U.S., businesses and everything due to COVID. Caused a lot of fear in the market, rates spiked up, and then they kind of came back and down, up and down for about a 2-month period and stayed low ever since. Fast forward till the last 2 weeks of February, interest rates were really, really low. And then the last 2 weeks of February, interest rates jumped up about 50 basis points. That's 0.50% in about a 2-week period, about an 8-day period. And then since then in March, rates have come down a little bit more. So all in all, from February 12th through March 10th, you're looking at an increase in rate anywhere from 0.25% to 0.33%. Pretty big jump up given that rates have been low for so long and very stable for so long. But in the big scheme of things, if you just look at this overarching line graph, you can see rates are really, really low. And if I could take this back, a number of years in the past, rates were even higher. This is just a 2-year snapshot. So rates are really low, as Gina alluded to. So what does that mean for you guys? it means we're able to renew these bands. So these bands are the non-tax revenue bond anticipation notes. We refer to them as bands, BANS. And these non-tax revenue bands are coming due on March 13th of this year. I'm sorry, not March, May 13th. My apologies. May 13th of this year, those bands are going to come due, and the city has to do one of two things. They got to pay it down, pay it off, or renew it for another year. And from talking to the administration of the city, and based on the timeline of the city's potentially selling that property sometime in the future, we believe it's probably the best thing to go ahead and renew those bands for another year. So that's what we're planning on doing, assuming city council agrees with that thought process. But in terms of interest rates, they are very, very low. And these rates are a little outdated. It was back from February 23rd. Like I said, rates have come down a little bit since then. But we have to do these as taxable, non-tax revenue bands. And you're looking at 1 year renewing. The interest rate on the band will be a 0.50, and that's just estimated. So don't hold me to that rate. That's just an estimated rate as of today. And then when you throw in all the closing costs, you're looking at a rate of all in of about 1.15. That's a very, very low interest rate right here, fixed for the term, which will be 1 year. And the nice thing about renewing these bands, it just gives you flexibility. And that's the nice thing about doing a band issue for this type of financing. You're hoping to be able to pay off these bands within the next year or so when you sell the property. So this is a really nice financing that will allow you that opportunity to pay it off in the future. We also explored doing it as a direct placement like we did last year. But you can see the interest rates are a little higher if we do a direct placement with a bank. So it makes sense to do it as a public offering. So that's what we're proposing to the city. I'll pause there. Is there any questions by the city council or city administration?
Michael, this is Daryl Revolt. I've got just a quick question. Maybe this is one the finance director should answer, but I noticed we're going to do this on an emergency. Can we do this on an emergency?
Yes, and the finance director, and Gina, I don't want to speak for you, but we've reached out to your bond counsel, Ryan Calendar with Squire Patton Boggs, and he's the one that advised you and advised the city that we can do this as an emergency.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Dominic here. I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
So let's say the public offering is the direction to go for a thought. Does that lock it in for 1 year till the next time we renew this?
That's exactly correct. So once we go through the process and my firm Baird sells these bands in the public market, once the bands are sold, that rate's locked in for the year.
Okay, so if it's on an emergency, because you know how volatile things can be if there's a hiccup, we would want to lock in as quick as we could to the lower rate, right? So if it's on an emergency and it happens quickly, how quick can you turn around the lock in?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that's exactly why I showed this graph to you. It is a time sensitive matter. And locking in sooner is probably better. I also prepared just a preliminary closing schedule. So assuming the finance committee and city council decide to move forward and pass the legislation at Monday, March 22nd, city council meeting, we can then lock the rate in on April 6th. So you see right here, April 6th is the band pricing date. And the pricing means when we sell the bonds, sell the bands. And at that point, they'll be locked in on April 6th.
Michael Merkster here. Let's say we sell this thing in about 6 months or so, and not that it really matters that much, but is there a big penalty for payoff early?
That's a great question, Mark, and we discussed that. There's some potential that we could have done it with a local bank, and a local bank may provide more flexible call options. And call option means prepayment option, Mark. With a public offering, they're what you call non-callable, which means they're not able to be prepaid. So we won't be able to prepay these bands. So if your buyer comes along and we're able to close more quickly, we'll just have to keep these bands outstanding and then pay it off on their final maturity date, which will be a year from now, May 11th. But from walking through with your administration, we kind of walked through as well as with your bond counsel, Squire Penn Boggs. After we kind of worked out all the details of kind of best case scenario, we believe, and Patrick maybe might chime in, but we believe that really it's highly unlikely we'll be able to close on any new purchase much earlier than a year from now. And Patrick, I'm not sure if you have some more color on that or not.
Yeah, I would say that this was a subject matter that we wanted to delve into, and looking at more of a specific timetable. And there is a tremendous amount of interest in the Kmart property, and provided that we can get through a due diligence period right now, we would be looking somewhere in the 6 to 9 months from now range on a potential closing, which then puts us just a few months away from when the bands may be ultimately due. And in talking with finance director and bond counsel, we felt that the best thing to do in that case would just be to set the proceeds aside from that and then pay the bands when they come due, rather than try to get a prepayment waiver, if you will, because ultimately we probably wouldn't be able to get the low interest rate that we're getting. It would be a higher interest rate, and sometimes banks charge even a little bit higher just to have that prepayment waiver in there, because they're taking risk that you may pay off the note ahead of time. So this, I think, in the long run, makes the most sense for the city financially.
Yeah, I couldn't say it better, Patrick. That's exactly right. So, we did walk through that, Mark, and that was a pretty big subject that we chatted about, and decided this was the best approach.
So looking at these numbers, it looks like the interest on this is $51,664. Let's just pray we sell it for a lot more and we can pay that off, is what you're saying. And we'll come out in better shape.
Correct.
Okay.
Dominic here. I have one more quick question. So we commit to one more year, and let's say we cut it real close and the Kmart project, we can't quite wrap it up. Then we have to extend it another year, or we just pay it off, or whatever the case may be. Is it possible? Is there like a rider in there where we could just say, if we do get the Kmart thing taken care of ahead of time, and we still have that, or we extend it another year, can we assign other debt to that instead of you identify what debt is covered to $4 million? Can we roll other debt into it if we pay off some of this other stuff, if we have some other projects? You with me?
Yeah. So if we're unable to close on this right away and we still have to keep it outstanding for a little bit, can we extend it? Is essentially what you're asking, Dominic?
Yeah, extend it or assign other debt that they may be buying something down the road, and we just want to roll that into the bond. I didn't know if that's possible to do.
Yep, that's exactly right. We can do that. So that's to say, under that scenario, where it's beginning of May 1st, and we know the property is not going to close for another month and a half or something. We could do a couple of things at that point. We could do like a 3-month ban. So if we know it's going to close within a month or two, we could do a 3-month, 6-month, 9-month ban with a local bank. It will be a little more expensive on the interest rate, but it's something we can do to just kind of cover that gap, essentially. And then to answer your second part of your question, yes, we could always include additional projects into the financing when we roll it over. And in fact, we can do it right here if council wants as well. But keep in mind, this one is done as taxable because it's an economic development project. So for example, if you're buying police cruisers or whatever equipment, you probably want to do that tax exempt. So we probably want to do that separate. But if there's another economic development project that you want to roll into this, you could easily do that now or in the future when the time comes.
Without the term, this is Dominic again, without the terms changing, without selling it to the bank, we can still use the public offering and then assign other projects that are like projects to the public offering.
We would have to roll it over again, so renew it again. It'll be a whole
Okay.
new ban issue and new terms.
Would the closing costs be the same? The
It'll be
APR?
similar. It would be similar.
Okay. All right, just good information.
Yeah, does that make sense? Did I answer that okay, Dominic?
Yeah, I get it.
Okay. Those are all really good questions. Anything else come to your mind? And I'm more than happy to answer if there's something else that comes up.
No, well done.
Hey, this
Thank
is
you, Doug.
Daryl. I have just one other very quick question. What you've described tonight is really, in terms of municipal finance, a relatively routine transaction. This is not extraordinary, correct?
No, you're 100% correct. These are done very often.
Okay,
For
thank you.
cities and counties.
Okay. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Pat or Gina, do you want to say anything else?
No, I think
I
they
think I-
covered. Go ahead, Patrick. I think everything was covered on my end.
Yeah,
I think
thanks,
I would
Mike.
just add here that to make sure that everybody understands that the amount that we are seeking to place on this new ban includes all the property at
Right.
the Kmart. If you recall, a year ago, we did two separate bond issues, one for the Kmart building, which was the Seritage property, and then the second one was for the other surrounding land. And we did that so that we, wouldn't necessarily have to pay interest on money that we didn't yet need because it took a little bit longer to get those other properties brought in. And as a result, we asked that the maturity date be the same. So what we're doing now is just replacing all of that with one new issue. So that's why the amount is what it is.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks again for coming. We appreciate that. That was a great explanation. And then if there are no other questions, I move to put it on the agenda for next week under emergency.
Revolt seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? All right. Motion carries. All right. Thank you, Steph. All right. Moving on. Park and Recreation. Excuse me. Okay. All right. Moving on. Park and Recreation. Chairman Foltz.
Thanks, President Peters. I'm going to turn this over to the administration. It seems that we're asking for, the only change is on the daily rate structure on the weekends. Everything else is the same as far as keeping our rate structure intact. And I don't know if you've had a chance to review that at all, Council, but I'll just bring this up, orally. We can get into more information maybe next week with Pat. Maybe Gina can provide it too. But as it stands now, our rates are pretty reasonable, especially with our membership. So Monday through Friday, it's $10. Saturday or Sunday right now is $11. After 5 is $7. Children under the ages of or 6 are free with an adult. Our memberships, and I don't know if you guys have that in front of you or you can put that in front of everybody.
I'm putting it on screen now, sir.
Perfect. Thank you. Just a recap. Really, it's always been more beneficial to join the pool as a member, especially if you're a City of Canton resident. So you can see that stayed intact. I think the administration's only ask is for, I say only, it's a 20, maybe 28% increase, but it's for the weekend use of walk-up. And I don't remember when these rates went into effect, whether it was maybe 3 years ago. But we also have to consider that we put about $800,000 plus in this 3 or 4 years ago for all the improvements at the liner and the walkway and the different utility rooms. I mean, we really did put a lot of money into it. So, I've been proud of the pool for many years, what we've added with slides, the spray ground. We still have a diving board. We're one of the few cities that offer a pool. So that all said, Pat, if you'd like to weigh in on this, and then we can have further discussion. But I would like to see either Gina or Pat, we can put together something by next meeting, just what we've accomplished with the pool as a recap, and also what our revenue stream's been, our operational costs with the Y. As we know, the YMCA runs the pool for us, and they offer some other things as a Y, as far as lessons and lifeguards and so forth. So it does present a positive impact to our community with the Y's involvement. It'd just be nice to recap that for everybody, because we haven't talked about it for a while. And it can really throw out this past year with COVID. I know the pool was used later in the year once we allowed it to happen, but still we had social distancing issues, and it just wasn't a typical recreational year to really review as a normal year, like would say 19 or 18. So that said, Pat, would you like to weigh in on some of the reasoning on this?
Well, I certainly would. So thank you for that opportunity. I want to make sure that all of you understand that this has been a journey that we're on in trying to get the operations at the pool properly under control. And as council may recall, one of the first things that we did 3 years ago was restructure the management agreement with the Y. And I felt in my analysis then that there was a lack of incentives under cost controls, and the pool, although we're not trying to turn it into a profit center, we also don't want it to bleed red ink. And that's unfortunately what we had been doing. So we changed the management structure there. And as a result, each year that it has been in place have been what we have been looking for. So we redid the management agreement for an extended period of time for the Y, because we liked the direction it was going. And, the first 2 years under that agreement, we were returning a significant revenue stream back to the city so that we could reinvest in the pool. 2020, even though it was COVID, we eked out a small gain, negligible, I would call it, but nonetheless a small gain, less than $25,000. Now, so we feel we have the management in place, and that it's working properly, and we feel that we're administering it properly. So what's the next thing? Well, the next thing is we have to invest money in the facilities again. So as the Councilman Foltz has indicated, yes, we did do a splash pad there. That splash pad, though, was a long time ago, and we have never really reinvested funds into it to bring it more current, to make sure that it's still a nice splash pad, that it's relevant. And you look at some of the features that have occurred in other areas in other cities. Not every city has a pool, as Councilman Foltz has indicated, but many have splash pads, and the splash pads are a lot nicer than what we have. So we did in addition to that, we have been talking for a number of years with, Councilman Soretta has been active in this and trying to find a way to get a new gatehouse, concession area, bathroom changing area, all that. When you walk into the place, that is an original structure that is way neglected and needs, quite frankly, just needs to be torn down and replaced with something else. So we had entered into an arrangement with the Y that we would kick back share of the profits into a a fund that would be set aside for funding a pool house renovation building after, a 3 to 4 year period. We felt that with the way things were going pre-COVID, that we could save enough money over the next 3 years to do that. The Y would very much wants to be a partner in that, because this helps. It helps them manage it. It helps, on the concessions that we could offer more things, more relevant things. It all turns the meter for us. So there is some capital that needs to be accounted for as we go forward, and the rate structures are tied to that. So that day rate, we adjusted it 2 years ago to help accommodate this future change that was coming. Now, the next piece that we were really addressing here tonight, though, is when we sit down and we look at talking with our management consultant, when we actually sit down and start looking at the stuff, when were people coming? When do they show up at the pool, and what effect does it have? Well, what we're finding still is that there are way too many people coming on the weekends, on Saturdays and Sundays. And these are not people that are coming that are from the city of North Canton. This is a benefit to Stark County and all the surrounding counties. And our day rate structure was the lowest of any pool, beach around. So what was happening is a lot of people were coming in who didn't have an equity stake ownership in the pool, and they treated it as such. And they've come in and they trash the place, throw food, leave food, debris, trash. This all puts a stress on management and the city to come in and clean up, deal with it when you don't have anybody that really cares. They look at it as, hey, for $10, I can go party at the pool, don't really care what happens there, and walk out at the end of the day, and nobody, can do anything. So with so many people coming in, it seemed to be that the members then were suffering, and they weren't enjoying the facilities as much as they probably could. And they're the ones that have the equity interest in making sure that it stays nice. So we thought that changing the rate on the weekend only for the guest pass to go to $14 would start to do a couple things. One, those that could shift their activity to during the week could still go at the same rate as the rates were, $10, no change. And discount, of course, after 5 p.m. That we thought that might get some of the easing the pressure on the weekend, shifting it during the week. In addition to those elements that were from outside the county, or coming in and just looking at it as a cheap date, so to speak, $10 to get in. Now we're looking at a pricing that's comparable to what other areas charge. So like if we looked at Clearwater, which is up in Lake Township there, their day rate every day is $13.50 a day per person. So it's comparable to that. And if that puts them in play for some of our attendance that's from out of the area to go there as an alternative, I think that will enhance our experience at Dogwood. Keep in mind that the rates don't truly cover everything that goes on there. We try to do our best in getting a balance sheet there, but we don't put onto the balance sheet, Brian Hill's expense, Steve Schenk. There's a lot of people that are involved in managing or being overseeing what's happening there. And that's kind of a cost that's hard to calculate for that. But as it relates to the hard costs of how much CO2 and how much chemicals are needed in the pool and all that kind of stuff, that is what we do keep track of with the Y and providing that reporting. So we're hoping that this works. We see that as we look around and we look at other management structures of other pools, we see where they have gone through this, what we're going through already, and they have adopted additional mechanisms. I'm not saying that here, but as I look down the road, if we're unable to, provide a quality experience, we've seen that other management models have gone to the extent of saying that, guest passes or people coming in under a guest pass have to be accompanied by a member. We see that happening already in other areas around us. I'm not saying that's here, and we are here at that time. We think that this remedy will work, but if we're proven to be wrong, as council has been so gracious over the years with me, anyhow, and the things that we're doing is we're trying to find a way to make it work, and if we continue to fine tune it, backtrack if we have to, we will. But we do think that this step is necessary for this year. So as Councilman Fultz has said, all the other rates stay the same. It provides a tremendous value. If you're a city resident and you buy preseason, you're looking at $80 for a single. That's a heck of a deal. A family membership, $192, same as 2019. So, really holding the rate steady there in all other aspects. So that's what I would have to add. If there's any questions, take them, or Doug, I'll get together with you on what specifically you're looking for to include in perhaps a PowerPoint presentation. I'll get that ready.
Thank you, Pat. No, I think that was a good overview. And I've always said this through the years, if you're going to go to the pool as a family more than 5 times, you're better to buy a membership, because, especially with the summers getting warmer, I think that's a trend that'll continue. And that's what we offer to our residents at all times. If you're a resident here, that's your best way to go. If you have children, especially, under 6, that are not included, as far as an additional cost for a family of 4, that's really a bargain, really, when you look at everything else that's presented. So, no, that's all I have. With that, we'll open up to the rest of council for other questions.
Dom here. Go ahead. No, who's that talking?
Soretta here.
Go ahead, Mark, and then I'll talk.
Well, thank you, Dom. Thank you. Appreciate that. You're such a gentleman. I talked to Ben Wheeler today and said very similar back and forth we had talked that Pat did here. And I really do this. This is probably needed for the right reasons. We want to sell memberships. And so that's, like Doug said, that's the way to go. Anyways, if you're looking for a price cut, that's the way to go. This is reasonable compared to other places around here. The comparables are important for me, at least. And I think that we're in the right place for that. But we still need to manage this place. It doesn't have to be a moneymaker. It's more of a community asset. We have so many things we put money in, we're not making money out of them, but we surely don't want to lose a lot of money on the pool. But it is a very high community asset here that we need to keep making better and better. And as Pat alluded to, going forward, we do need to get a pool house. We've looked for donors on that, and that is needed more than anything. That is so far behind in every way, not just the kitchen, but it could be so much better with maybe an inside-outside concession stand, especially with the new park going in, how people can just walk over there and buy stuff whenever they want. That would be a huge asset there. The other thing we have to look at, and going down the road here, is, we're getting behind on this place. Our splash pad is, if you go to other splash pads, they're great. So we do need to look at maybe enhancing that down the road. Another thing to talk to Ben about is they could use a slide enhancement. If you look at that pool, when during the day, and you look at all the people that are there, there's a big section of that pool that no one goes to. And it's kind of like a deep end away from the diving board. People either stand up in the lower areas or they're on the diving board, and then they just don't want to go in the deep other ends. That could be an area where maybe we should throw some more slides in and really make this place pop. If we can, get some donors or get some grants of some kind, there's some areas there that this place could really be an improvement and really bring people in. On the other side, how many people can we get in the place? I mean, there's only so many people, so much parking out there, and maybe we should, with the new park coming in, we're going to have to look at parking out there, and maybe look around, talk to the school and some other things, how we can enhance our parking. One more thing too, I know I'll just dominate this, but the immediate need for them right now is they did some blow ups last year. One was a big blow up splash thing that was a big hit, and it's about $2,500. And I was just thinking, we're getting a price range. What are we giving back here? I was thinking of getting a donor, but maybe that's something for $2,500 we can put in over there and justify a good price increase at the same time. And $2,500 doesn't seem to be a lot for something that will enhance something.
And Mark, we already got that handled.
That's even perfect.
That's good.
That's great.
Good.
I think it's a smart move, and it's good for everything out there. Those blow up things are just awesome for the kids.
Yeah.
Too. So good stuff with that. Thank you for that. And that's all. Don, go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, Chairman Foltz, thanks, Mark, for your comments. And I know, Mark, you've been down there with me and anybody on council through the years. We've seen the transition to really, the line or the outside, the grass areas, the umbrellas. It's all been positive. And you remember, Mark, we looked at North Canton school property to see if there's a way that we could utilize some of that east side for a larger slide. I mean, we've had drawings on this. I think we need to really, since we're developing Dogwood, as you mentioned, put a plan together for this again to see what our possibilities are. Because you're right, it's been probably close to 20 years on that spray ground. We think it was yesterday, but it hasn't. Time goes quickly. And I think we owe it to have such a great asset like this to better plan for it for the next, 5 years for capital growth there. Let's finish the pool. Let's figure out what we're going to do with the entrance. The concessions, as you said, that's a great point. Inside, outside concessions for the Dogwood renovations there for that park. I think those are home runs. We just got to continue to look at and really plan for. Thank you. Thanks, Mark. Dominic, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to chime in with what Mark said. Where I see something, I mean, if you put the splash park in and maybe put a slide and enhance it, even at the $14 or $15 on the weekend, still a good deal for a first class, safe, wonderful area. Then you got a full day experience with across the street with the new park company. On top of that, I see that you could get a 10-fold return on investment, ROI, for the food. Because in essence, you could have a food truck or two that we would own, or the city or the Y or somebody. It could be parked across the street and they could work back and forth technically. And I always felt like the country club feel is, when you have these young people, summer jobs working there, instead of coming up to concessions, you just go around with your notepad and take orders, and then you'll sell quadruple the food if that's a profit maker. And that's inside the park. And then outside the park, you got, all the amenities coming over there. So I could see a picnic over there, and you could stop and get a pizza at the new place that we have set up, or the food truck, like a fair, like that kind of food that people are just having a special time. If I were running that, I see that as where the home run is in the food department.
Yeah. Great points, Dom. Appreciate it. Anyone else on council?
Yeah, this is Stroya. I like that. I really like that idea of the indoor-outdoor cafeteria in the property, out of the property. I think that would be pretty successful. And I'm happy to hear about some future improvements of the gatehouse. I worked there, 26 years ago, and it was bad then. I mean, it needed some help back then. So it's long overdue. So Good job, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Doug,
Chairman Foltz, this is Catherine. Chairman Foltz, I just wanted to give you guys a couple talking points to keep in mind. If you hear anything on that rate going up to 14 daily, that is only weekends, as we said, still $10 during the week. Our most comparable pool we talked about just 15 minutes north is Clearwater. It's $13.50 per day every day. And we allow children 6 and under in free. They allow children 30 inches, below 30 inches, half price. So we still are very reasonable. And just if anyone's thinking that's a jump to 14, it's still a much better deal than the closest park we have that's similar. And we are bigger. We have a lot more space than Clearwater. It's a smaller footprint, and we allow food in, and that's a big savings to families bringing the picnic lunch in. They will not allow as much as a bottle of water. Beyond that, you have to buy their concessions, which, can really add up. So just to keep those talking points in mind.
Right. Thank you for those. I appreciate
Sure.
that. Was it Daryl or was it?
Yeah, it was Daryl, Doug.
Yeah.
Just wrap this up real quick. We've talked about two kinds of improvements up at the pool. The first are what I'd consider, the sort of light lift project, a sliding board, additional sun shelters, that sort of thing. But you've got two other big ones, splash pad and the gatehouse. Mm-hmm. And what I might recommend is council try to build one of these into a near-term future budget, even though you may not have the resources necessarily. It moves the conversation along from a general discussion to, hey, we're going to do this. And you may end up kicking it down the road a little bit, but clearly that structure is 50 years old. And I think it was built in 1971, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
It's time. And we need to move the conversation to something a little more definitive, figure out kind of what we need in terms of dollars. Maybe it's when things calm down a little bit this summer to get some estimates, some design work, something that you can get your arms around and plan around.
Right. No, Daryl, that's why I brought that up. We all concur on that. Let's put it on paper so we can plan for it and have the vision's always been there. Let's finish it. We've come this far with it, and we owe it to our constituents to do it. You know what I mean? And move forward. I agree wholeheartedly.
Dom here. I think that would help people envision donations as well to be part of something larger that's tangible and visual.
Correct.
Hey, it's Stephanie. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Stephanie.
No, I won't repeat anything anyone said, but I just agree. And I think it's a great idea to get it on paper. And we've been talking about it for many years. And, we've seen so many improvements, and I can't tell you the amount of people that continually say what a great community asset it is. So just got to keep it up.
Definitely. Thank you. Jeff, did you have any comments? You're the only one left.
No, that's it. You know where I live. I live right next to it.
Yeah, and you probably use it more than anybody.
It's Jeff's pool, for goodness sakes.
My kids have spent many a day there, and it really is. I said when we first put the money into it to up or to fix the liner and whatnot, I argued then that was not just a community asset, but it was an economic driver, especially for the neighborhood over there. We have smaller homes that aren't necessarily conducive to having young families with multiple cars in it, but the property values, I believe, and I would argue that to the end, that those property values stay where they're at higher than what if you put them somewhere else because of that pool and the park. So yeah, I'm all for it.
And Jeff, you're right. Jeff, you're right on that. I just looked at a study. If your property is near certain parks, their property values average 8 to 10% increased value because you buy a park. If the amenities are up to speed, if they're up to date and so forth. And that's the other thing too, is we know this pool is very walkable for most of the city. Now I know on the outskirts it's not, but let's be reasonable. I mean, a lot of kids can ride their bike there and have a wonderful day on a membership, and it doesn't get any better than that as far as park and recreation. So with that, I guess I'll make a motion to move it forward as there's no other comments to council for first reading next week.
Revolt will second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion carries. And that concludes the agenda for this evening. Great dialogue.
Hey, Jeff.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if Chairman Revolt of his committee had a chance to mention to you about the need for a special committee meeting next week.
No, not yet.
Okay.
We
All
have
right,
one.
what do you,
Your zoning ordinance should be ready.
oh. Do we want to, you want to plan that now or?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Pat.
Yep.
Yes, thank you. All right, so where are we thinking?
I'm thinking next Monday after your other meeting.
Immediately following council? Okay.
Yeah.
And Daryl, you want to real quick give us a overview on what the topic will be?
Yeah, the topic will be the presentation to council of the newly drafted Main Street corridor zoning, corridor of opportunity, zoning for North Canton Second Century. We would, basically the purpose is to take an initial look, conduct some very, very brief discussions, but refer it over to the Planning Commission to have it begin its deliberations, and then we'll have a more thorough conversation when it comes back to us.
Okay, sounds good. So I need a motion and a second to add a special committee of the whole meeting following next week's, immediately following the next week's city council meeting.
Foltz moves.
Go ahead. Does Foltz move?
Ready
Yes.
second?
And Soretta seconds, all in favor? Oh, we need a roll call on that, right?
Yes, roll call.
Yeah, roll call vote, please, Ben.
Member Revolt,
Yes.
Member Peters,
Yes.
Member Stroya,
Yes.
Member Soretta,
Yes.
Member Fonte,
Yes.
Member Foltz,
Yes.
Member Waring.
Yes.
7 in favor, 0 opposed.
All right, thank you very much. Well, thank you for that, Pat, Daryl.
Thank you.
And
Thank
that
you.
now concludes our agenda, so I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Revolt moves.
Warren second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Have a great
Thank
evening,
you.
everyone.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.